concentration of the Muslims has not established large number of institutions. Look at Kerala is leading, in fact, in terms of the institutions. These are the private institutions, remember, which have been given the minority status. That means that these are the institutions which are available in the public domain as in private institutions. They will be able to compete with the other private institutions which have been opened up due to the marketization of the economy. Look at one side, the market has opened up, which is now allowing larger number of institutions to come in. Like for example, the American universities, they are coming in to our country. They are opening up their outpost. There are a larger number of institutions that have been mushrooming, private institutions. And that's the reason why we have got this space is available. But whether our institutions are strong enough to compete with them. And in that particular context, where do you look at our institutions after 35 years? Look at the given the number. Kerala stands first. Kerala has got nearly 3,495 minority institutions. UP has got 1,741 institutions out of 8,261 institutions across the country, which is less, which is 10%. Or West Bengal, which has got a high concentration of the Muslim population, which has a dismal record, as per the Sacha Committee report, has got 674 institutions, minority institutions, which obviously mean that these institutions in the West Bengal would not be able to compete, level and compete, to establish large number of minority institutions in the years to come, given the structural constraints. If you read the Sacha Committee report, it's quite obvious that the Muslim community is facing what is called the structural constraints from within. So they'll not be able to compete, neither able to establish larger number of institutions in West Bengal. West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh has got 271 institutions, Assam 189 institutions, even though nearly 30, but West Assam has got nearly 30% of the Muslim population. Chhattisgarh has got 185, but very dismal picture is Karnataka. Karnataka has got 170 minority institutions. This is not my statistics. 170 institutions. In fact, the other reports say that Karnataka Muslims are far better in higher education. But if you read particularly in a Rahman Khan Committee report, it gives a very, very bad picture about the Muslims entering into the higher education. But Sacha Committee report say that Muslims are far better in Karnataka than any other states. That might be true. But in terms of establishing the number of institutions, it's quite disappointing, 170. Is it possible to take off from this 170 to establish not less than 1,500 institutions in the years to come? So it has to have not less than 150 or at least 15 universities of minorities in the years to come. Can you think about that, Ram? That probably that roadmap should have this idea of establishing the large number of higher education institutions, including the universities. As per the RUSA, every 100 colleges should have one university. If you have 1,500, at least you can have the 150 or the 150 universities in the years to come. It's easy. In fact, having a university is not a very big challenge. Like if you look at the Crash College, which is converted into a university, a PUC college, PUC to the MBA degree college has been converted into university, but not the university Muslim institutions. I was thinking that Al-Amin would one day become the university in Karnataka, and if you're going to similar kind of institutions that can be converted into universities, because they are the most important component of higher education. But the most important component, I'll come back to that, but if you look at the enrollment ratio, attendance ratio, whether is it possible to increase, given the fact that we need to go for the political, construction of a political caste, is it possible to increase the enrollment given the fact that, we can establish larger number of institutions or not? If you look at this particular thing, one side, the market has opened up. Market has allowed institutions to establish. Market has allowed everybody to operate and to establish an institution. Whoever has got the money, whoever has the capital, they can establish. That is why you have got the mushrooming of these institutions. Can Muslims exploit the situation of market? Not necessarily to exploit for their benefit, but for the benefit of the community. The second important question that I want to raise in this particular context is that when the public institutions are being funded by the state, can that fund be diverted to the establishment of Muslims institutions? Or can that fund help us to grow our own institutions? Can RUSA help us, help the community to become an inclusive community? Even though one of the arguments of the RUSA is to have the equity, access. Can we have the accessibility? Can we have the equity, social equity, through the means of the public funding? This is the second issue that I would like to raise. The third important issue is that what would be the political project? What would be the political ideology? Unless and until you have the democratic ideology, it will not be easy for us to operate. It will not be easy to establish, larger number of institutions of higher learning. As of date, we have got the democracy. One thing we need to understand the fact that our democracy has undergone different crises over the period. Right from 1975, when Mrs. Gandhi introduced what is called the emergency. Everybody thought that Indian democracy will collapse. And even the American scholars, they argued that democracy is a misnomer to us. They also argued that the democracy will collapse due to the irreconcilable contradictions. But democracy sustained in India. One thing I'm sure that even after 2047, our democracy will not collapse. I'm hopeful about that. Our democracy will be strengthened. Each election has strengthened our democracy. If you look at the percentage of vote, it was more than 63%, which obviously means that everybody believed in democracy. Nobody can, that even the Venkatacharya Commission report has clearly stated that nobody has the right to change the preamble of the Constitution, which says that ours is a secular, socialist, republic state, democratic state. We need to be hopeful about our democracy. So whatever in years to come, we need to operate within this democratic framework. And that's the reason why our democracy will not collapse, even though it might undergo the crisis, it will be strengthened. So we need to, negotiate with this democracy. We need to interact. So the whole question is that how many of us are interacting with this democratic framework? The number is dwindling in terms of the representation. This election has seen only the 20 MPs being elected as Muslims. That large number came from the West Bengal. Not a single from Karnataka, nor from Uttar Pradesh. How many university vice chancellors belong to the Muslim community? Leave alone Karnataka. We have only 2 Muslim university vice chancellors. No, we have hardly any. See, the whole question is that we are not been engaging ourselves with the democratic framework. Either we are divided community, even though we say that we are all homogeneous community, but in fact we are divided. We are divided internally. Probably we are not being able to, interact with the political apparatus as a homogeneous group. Okay, I got a sleep, cheating for 10 minutes. Whatever it may be. If I've got this particular political system, probably we need to engage with that one. So we don't have to bother that whether our democracy will collapse and everything. I'm definite that it will remain there, and that's the reason why our engagement should be within this democratic framework, and also should be for expanding democratic spaces for ourselves. But if this is the case, we are in a particular situation. In fact, what is actually represented in the higher education? If you look at the statistics, if I'm right, there are a couple of things that I would like to talk about. One important thing is that if you look at the enrollment ratio in the higher education, which is quite disappointing. Sorry, I'm taking a little more time here. Enrollment ratio, as such a committee report said that it's around 2% something. Others say that it is not more than 4% of the total population. If I talk about this particular enrollment ratio, it says that 11 of the 100 Muslims in India take up higher education. Only 11. That means that 11% of the total population take up the lowest as regards to the religious communities, compared to the 20% Hindus and 31% Christians who pursue their higher education. If you look at the urban area also, and the rural area, in fact, the situation in the rural area is worse, wherein only 6.7% of the Muslims take up the higher education. And I believe that at the urban areas also, the percentage of the Muslims who are enrolled at the higher education level is also very, very less, including the fact that the attendance percentage of the Muslims who are enrolled is also very, very less. Now the whole question is that, where do you put these Muslims? Is it possible to increase the enrollment ratio of the Muslims? Look at one side, you have the public policy coming up. RUSA says that we need to increase the enrollment of the total population to not less than 20%. Here, the enrollment is less than 10% in urban areas. Is it possible to multiply into 20%? How is it possible to increase the enrollment in the higher education? Is it through the means of providing incentives to the community, or constructing a caste, as I said earlier, and trying to get the benefit of the state? Or is it by becoming the part of, trying to get the benefit that the public institutions like the UGC, which is being given? Look at the large number of incentives that the UGC is being giving, whether the scholarship, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, the scholarship, and other things that are being given to the minorities. The whole question is that the number of applicants, the number of students who are receiving the scholarship or the benefit are again very, very less. Major problem is that there are two important problems. One is that the community is facing this structural crisis. They're not being able to overcome. They do not have the economic requirement. They might again be pushed to corner, given the fact that the market forces would again push them to the margin. In that particular situation, how do you bring the community to the forefront? One side I've been arguing that we need to establish large number of institutions in the years to come, so that the community can grow. Like for example, university. university, probably we need to have not less than 10 to 15 universities in the years to come, cater to the needs of the 14% of the population. Karnataka can lead this particular thing, even though the number of institutions in Karnataka, although less, 170, probably given the fact that Karnataka Muslims are far better when compared to any other Muslims of North India, except Kerala. Kerala Muslims are far better. I'm happy about that. When everybody talks about them. Kerala, I think the Karnataka can take up this initiative in establishing the large number of institutions. That obviously means it can accommodate and also provide the required space for the Muslims to be a part of the state building, to be a part of larger economy. Unless and until you make them economically sustained category, the major problem is that when we talk about this economically sustained category, our large number of population belong to the Muslim community are not economically sustained category. That's a major problem. See, we are on autonomous categories, unlike the Dalits. Dalits are basically linked to the land. Dalits are found only in the rural areas. They have been struggling in the lands. But this particular situation has not arisen with regard to the minorities, the Muslims. Muslims are autonomous categories. You find the rag pickers up till a big businessman. You have a community which is diversified community, but they are all autonomous. But are they a self-sustained category? That's a major problem. If you look at the economic category, economy of the community, the large number of, except barring the small segment, the large number of community is not self-sustained category. You need to make them economically sustained category so that their progenies, their children can enter into the higher education. They can become a part of this market. And at the same time, we need to think in terms of establishing competitive institutions vis-a-vis the others. Probably that would make us to a most empowered community in the years to come. Otherwise, what will happen that we will be simply talking about our community even after 1960, even after 2047, wherein the 14% out of the 14%, 95% remains backward, 95% remains a marginal community. We need to convert 95% into 14% rather than the 14% into 95%. Thank you very much. Great, thanks.
Zafar Sadi sir, thanks a lot for finishing also on time. So we have our next topic. It is educating Muslims conceptual issues, and the speaker will be Mr. Ishrat Nisar. She is the principal of Baduka Community College, and he will share you by Samvada.
Opening speech by Professor Asadi. I think according to the schedule, conceptual issues should have been discussed first. Anyway, I don't want to embarrass them. Educational backwardness among Muslims is drawing increased attention the world over. The question about the roots of the problem and possible strategies to address the core issues are being deliberated and discussed in social and political circles. In this paper, I will briefly explore the role of religion, religious institution, Indian history, state policies, community realities, and mindsets of the community to analyze the key concerns. The second part of the paper proposes concrete measures that can be taken based on the analysis present. When we talk about the role of Islam, you are all well aware that if I want to ask a question, that whether Islam restricts or discourages education in any way. To answer this, we need to refer to the Holy Quran, which, in Hadith and in Quran, it has been, for the first word, what we see is Iqra, which means read, seek knowledge, educate yourself, be educated. The Holy Quran's hundreds of verses about education, and there are several references in the Hadith mentioning the significance of education in Islam. And you are all well aware of one of the verses which also says that if you want to acknowledge, if you want to get the knowledge, go to China. And China was not an Islamic country. So it is obviously, Quran at that time also referred that get to worldly education with Islamic education also. Did Islam have any scholars in its history? Is there any major contribution from these scholars to mankind? It is important to point out here that Hazrat Aisha Radhiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, wife, was a great known scholar whom people often approached for her knowledge and guidance. In the period between the 8th and the 14th century, Islam gave the world a large number of scholars who have contributed immensely to human knowledge in the fields of science, astronomy, medicine, surgery, engineering, and philosophy. And you know their names also. These examples suggest that Islam was a great